What's up, YouTube? So before we get started with this video, on the Get Up, they're going to be talking about round 2, game 1 between the Golden State Warriors and the Houston Rockets. So let's see what they have to say about that.
Here's Joe Borgia, the NBA Senior VP of Replay and Referee Operations. What a title. Telling NBA TV, Draymond Green doesn't jump directly towards Harden. He's jumping in front of Harden, trying to go across from him. The contact on this play, if you watch it close, is Harden. You see him sort of jackknife at his waist, and he brings his legs a little farther than he did on the first shot. And the only contact is with his feet down there at his lower legs. So in our opinion, Draymond would not have contacted James under normal conditions. He did not take away his landing area. So we felt that was the correct no call on that play. And at the end of the day, everything boils down to that play. So, Jay Will, you have been I wish everyone could have seen how eager Jay Will was to get.
So real quick, I'm happy the referees didn't call that because that was a blatant flop by James Harden. And we'll get deeper into that further on in the video. So let's keep going.
In on this conversation as we were going through it, the floor is yours. What did you see here?
The rule has great intention, but it's being abused. And now I agree that the first 3 calls against Klay Thompson should have been called in the first half. But what's happening right now is what constitutes a landing zone, right? So a landing zone for James Harden in the second half, he kicks his legs out, he creates a contact. It puts the refs in a precarious situations because now as a ref, I have to worry about, okay, so everybody's athletic ability dictates a different landing zone. So for James Harden also, he's infamously known for flopping, kicking his legs out to create contact. That almost works against him and gives him more harm than it does helpful to him in a situation like this. It's incredible.
So just to start this off, if you have to rely on the referees to help you out, to get you in a position to win a game, something's wrong, and you probably do not belong in the second round of the playoffs. For 2, James Harden's been doing this the whole year, so everybody knows what it is, and this was just a blatant flop. And for 3, maybe the call should have been made on Klay Thompson earlier in the game. But what negated that was when James Harden decided to do a super flop, which kind of put the referees at neutral. So now they're not going to be on his side necessarily because of what happened before. You negated that by doing a super flop. So now the referees are right back at neutral. Had James Harden not flopped the way he did, the referees might have been looking more at Klay Thompson and the Golden State Warriors. But since he did his blatant action and everybody can see and everybody's going to be watching it until game 2, the referees are going to do right back on neutral. So if anything, that hurt him trying to overcompensate. So let's keep going.
This is my biggest issue. You are 100% right. But what happens is when you miss those first 2 or 3 calls, then they start to exaggerate it. Well, like they're not giving me the right call, then I'm going to exaggerate it. That's where Chris Paul throws his hip out. That's where James Harden on the last one even exaggerates it more because you're worried about more than just making your shot in an original call because you saw that they missed it every single time.
So if they missed it every single time, then you can't overcompensate for that because then that makes you look just as bad as whatever you think Golden State was doing. You can't overcompensate like that. You got to keep playing your game and don't get out of the game, and eventually the referees will pick up on it. But since you went, it's like an eye for an eye. Well, you guys are doing this to me, so I'm doing that to you. Well, then now let's put the referees at neutral. Now you look bad because you definitely were flopping. So if the referees weren't calling it before on the other side, they're not going to call it for you. Or they're not going to call it now. So it's just really bad. It looks bad on James Harden and Houston Rockets. Especially everybody knows James Harden can ball during the regular season, but everybody knows coming to playoffs, James Harden starts choking, and this is exactly what he's doing. It's almost like he knows he's going to choke, so he has to get the referees involved to try to save him because he knows he's not going to knock it down any threes. I mean, how many threes did they take? I think they went for like 9 for 28 or something like that. And how many free throws did Harden get? He's talking about you want a fair chance? How many free throws did you get? So I don't know. Let's keep going.
So many things about this that were frustrating. We'll start with this one, and then we'll move to other places. Here's my frustration, okay? Yep. And I heard Paul Pierce getting into it with Steve Javie after the game was over. There are no playoff calls, postseason calls, regular season calls. That's what Steve's position was. He's a former official. But here's the problem. That was a foul in every game this season. If you watch the NBA this year, those plays, landing zone, call it whatever you want, that was a foul every single time. So if you're going to tell me that wasn't changed yesterday, I'm going to tell you that's not right. You're just not right. If you watch the NBA this year, that's a foul in every game.
Greeny, my only thing,
So, no, you're right. You're correct. That may have been a foul during a regular season, but now it's the playoffs. So now you're going to have to use your real skill. You can't be depending on, oh, let me get the foul, and then maybe I'll make the shot. The referee's like, you know what? If you're a baller, you're going to have to make that shot and don't worry about or have to count on getting the foul so you can get your points because you can't shoot the deep three in the playoffs. And that's a good thing for the referees. That's a good thing. Let these guys play, and if you're a baller, you'll make that shot. Because if your first thing is to, let me see if I can get the foul so I can get the easy shots versus trying to make the shot first, then there's something wrong. There's something seriously wrong with that type of thing, and you're not going to make it. But you haven't made it all these past couple of years because you can't shoot three when it counts. So let's keep going.
Understand that. I think the rule, and I get how we want to protect the shooter. But in RJ, you've been a great defensive player. I played a long time. I don't understand how I'm supposed to gauge exactly where your landing zone is, Greeny. Like, what constitutes a landing zone? And this is why I think it's wrong with the rule. I think if you want to have the Zaza rule about protecting the shooter, it has to pertain to verticality. Like, if you want to sway an inch to the side or an inch forward, fine. If I land underneath you in your verticality zone, that's a foul. But if my landing zone is a foot ahead of where I am, then I don't know how I'm supposed to defend you.
And I agree with you, Jay. And that's why I said in the second half that those calls, I'm not 100%. I'm not all about those calls. But the ones in the first half, like those as a basketball player on any level, we're not talking about verticality landing zones. Those are fouls in every single level.
So it's pretty much fire with fire. If you want to jump up and land 3 feet a yard from where you originally shot your shot, well, then the defense is going to have to make adjustments to the cheating tactics that you're doing, and vice versa. Don't try and come back and counteract so you jump up in the air, Harden, and then you kick your feet out a foot or a yard and try to draw the foul. That's why I'm happy the referees did what they did, and James Harden messed up because it's blatant that he was doing what he was doing with the flopping, and now he wants to cry after the game about the referees. James Harden better be careful because those referees might give him something to really cry about in the next game. Because James Harden has no room to be crying about anything. So let's keep going.
Of basketball, including the NBA and including in the postseason.
And now the next point I think that we should make here, and I hope everyone had a chance to read Brian Windhorst's column on this on ESPN.com, and if you haven't, I recommend it highly because he makes the point that these are two teams that have mastered the art of getting calls. They have sort of mastered the art of gerrymandering the officiating to work to their benefit. Both of them so well, and now here they are going head-to-head. And Draymond Green, who was complimentary of the officials, if they had lost that game, he would have been the first one complaining because he was complaining the whole game.
Agreed. But again, that's what it is. It's like when things go their way, they're fine. And look, this is not about Draymond Green. This is about Steph Curry. This is about Klay Thompson. Both guys that are coming into this series with ankle injuries. If someone would have been doing that, and that would have been Steph that they were going underneath, then this would have been like everywhere. Everybody would have been issues.
You're right, Mr. Jefferson. It would have been everywhere because everybody knows that those two players are hurt. And then if Houston were to blatantly land where they should have been landing and hurt them, that's an issue because you're blatantly trying to hurt that person. That's different than how the Golden State Warriors are trying to land or be in a general area where Harden is landing and he's not hurt. You're not specifically trying to hurt him. You're just trying to play strong defense. That's not the same thing as trying to blatantly injure or perpetuate the injury that another player has. So there's a difference between there. There's a distinction. So let's keep going.
If Steph Curry would have hurt his ankle, this could change the entire series. So that's where Houston has that issue, and they're just like, look, we just want a fair chance.
I understand what you're saying, but you have to play through that if you're Houston. I mean, Eric Gordon and James Harden combined for 8 of 39 from the three-point line. That's
not good.
That's not good at all. So my thing is, regardless of whether fouls are being called or not, what happens is you see this turn into temper tantrums, and then you see them going at the refs. And I understand they have every right to go against the refs, but it takes them psychologically out of the game.
I mean, that's just terrible. Everybody knows for the past couple years that James Harden is Mr. Choke City in the playoffs. Everybody knows it. And what's his new tactics for this year that he's been working on the whole season? But he's using now in the playoffs is the tactic of draw the foul, start flopping because you know you can't hit that three, and it's obvious it's happening again with the choking. Because what Jason Williams just said, they went for 8 for 39 for threes. Again, he's choking again, and right now he's trying to do whatever he can. He's trying to use the referees to get him to get the points, but it's not going to work. It's not going to work because the referee is like, look, if you're a baller, you guys are in the playoffs, you should be able to win off of skill. Don't look for us to reward you for flopping when you should be looking for to get the shot first and then worry about the foul. I mean, that's a problem. And if I was a Houston fan, I would be so embarrassed. I would be so embarrassed because it's indicating you guys can't win without Harden getting flop calls. Getting flop calls. I mean, that's just so embarrassing. But you can do it the regular season, and everybody knows this is coming. Everybody knows this is coming, and James Harden is playing into it. I mean, I would rather get beat by the Golden State Warriors because I miss shots or I just whatever the situation is than to flop and try to get points off that. That's a bad move. That's a bad, embarrassing move. Let's keep going.
And very quickly, we did see Chris Paul make a little bit of contact with an official at the end of the game. Is there any conceivable chance that is discipline that spins over to game 2?
No, I don't think he went over to talk to the official. I don't think this was like a bump where he was just like trying to let somebody know. I don't know if that was going to warrant maybe a fine, but I don't think the NBA wants to interject here and suspend somebody. But I really do.
Oh, but if it was Draymond Green, there'd be Jermaine's suspended for the next 2 or 3 games. I mean, you can't touch the referee. I mean, Draymond has all these issues, and he's been suspended for. But it's okay for Chris Paul to go ahead and do it, and it won't be an issue. It was so bad that he had to be ejected, but it's okay. It's not nothing's going to carry over for the next game. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. But, Houston looks bad now because they're trying anything and everything, and their little shady bag of tricks to win, and they still lost, and it's just not working. It's just not working. Especially now the referees are really looking for it, and they know what to look for. It doesn't look good. I'd be embarrassed if I was a Houston fan right now. And the sad thing is they don't even need to do it. They don't even need to do these little floppy techniques because I have way more respect for James Harden to be a straight-up baller than looking for the flops. I mean, it's just bad. So let's keep going.
Feel like this series is now over. This was their one opportunity. They have to win 4 out of 6. It's not going to happen.
And it's just, you'd be a fool to think that the Houston Rockets are out and that this series is over. Off of one game, Jefferson, you don't know what could happen. So if Houston would have won, would the series still be over? I mean, it just doesn't really make sense. So off of one game, the series is over and that's it for Golden State? For me, if it was me and I was Steve Kerr, I would be jumping on the Golden State. We're like, you guys, we need to act like we are 2 games down. It's all gas, no breaks. We can't let these guys do anything. Don't let them jump up. Don't let them get any type of leads. Nothing. We need to get in there, slit the throat, and get out. Get out. Because you don't know. Don't give Houston any chance or any opportunities to get hot. They're down now. Let's keep it that way. Slit the throat. Win the second game at home, go to their house and beat them up again, and just keep it going. So, I don't know. Let's keep going. But the series is not over. The series is not over at all. So, let's keep going.
My bigger point about the Zaza rule is it takes away a little bit from basketball. I understand what the NBA is trying to do. I understand ankle injuries. I get all that. But I mean, we've been competing at this game for a very long time. The NBA has been in existence for 72 years. We haven't had a lot of players. We had the Jalen Rose situation with Kobe. We had the Kawhi Leonard situation. We had Markieff Morris 2 years ago. But it takes away from my ability to truly defend you, Greeny, if I'm worried about where I'm landing every single time I'm trying to contest your shot. It really does. I have to essentially jump backwards to try to contest your shot.
Greeny, he's fired up.
I understand. But there's no question that the momentum of the defensive player on the closeout is moving forward as well.
So my momentum is a foot ahead of where I leap. Your momentum is coming towards me. So how am I supposed to garner where my landing zone is?
And they know that, and James Harden's probably practiced it. But what it boils down to, just before this video is over, is that's a wuss move. I wish I could be more explicit to depend on the referee to get to your points. I mean, James Harden, Houston Rockets, you guys are way more better, have way more respect for you guys' game than to resort to flop tactics and then you cry about it. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. You got to be a baller, man. You guys are way better than this. Way better. So, I don't know. I hope this doesn't continue, but it probably will because, I don't know. But it just looks bad. It looks bad for Houston right now. So, let's keep going.
You would want that call.
Well, the problem, very quickly, and I want to move on here. The problem is they have to figure out how they're going to call this going forward, right? They have to make it as everyone needs to get together and figure out this is the way this is going to be called for the remainder of this series because they cannot have this. They can't have a 10-minute conversation right off the top of our show about the way this call is being officiated.
So this is why I said it puts the refs in a precarious situation.
Right.
So now as a ref, what am I supposed to be watching? Am I watching you getting contact ahead?